Robinhood's Hood Week is here. 12 days, 3 legendary offers, and unlimited bonus amounts. Earn 3% on IRA transfers with Robinhood Gold, 2% on transfers with at least a $10,000 margin balance, and 1% on brokerage transfers until October 27th. Hood Week ends soon, so visit Robinhood.com/HoodWeek. Investing is risky. Bonus offers subject to terms and conditions. Visit Robinhood.com/HoodWeek for more information. Margin is not suitable for all investors. Robinhood Gold is offered through Robinhood Gold LLC and is a subscription offering services for a fee. Brokerage services offered through Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, a registered broker-dealer.
Good afternoon. Let's do some business. In fact, we're doing it live right here, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons. We get right down to business right after Ben Shapiro. And just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5, it's Mottek On Money, live on the air here on 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com, and the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, all your favorite podcast platforms. Well, stocks finishing mixed today with the S&P 500 posting its first back-to-back losses since early September. Looks like bond yields continue to rise. The Dow coming in for a closing loss of just about 7 points. The blue chip index now down for 2 sessions in a row, coming off the record high we achieved on Friday. The S&P 500 slipped slightly, down to 3 points to 5,851. The Nasdaq, though, managed a closing gain of 33 points. And has seen its longest winning streak since mid-September. The price of gold, meanwhile, hitting a record high, moving up again today. Right now, gold is hovering above 2,700. In fact, right now, gold hit the settlement price of $2,759.80 an ounce. Silver also continues on a roll, moving just shy of $35 an ounce. We'll be talking about that here in just a moment. Denny's announcing it's closing 150 of its lowest-performing restaurants nationwide in an effort to turn around Denny's flagging sales. Denny's is a publicly traded stock, and it moved down nearly about 18% on the day today. Shares of Starbucks also moving lower after the company offered new signs of its struggle to bring back customers, according to the company's new CEO. Brian Niccol came in from Chipotle last month in a video presentation, according to MarketWatch, that the company had said lost track of its identity as a coffee chain and called for simplifying an overly complex menu in the way the company does business overall. The IRS making a big announcement today, setting its levels for income tax brackets and a commonly used deduction that Americans will have for their 2025 taxes. Taxes very much in focus, just a couple of weeks away from the presidential election. Can you believe it? I'll discuss that and more with America's leading taxpayer advocate, Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. Also this hour, I'll be joined by one of the most amazing entrepreneurs here in Southern California with a great American dream success story, and that would be the one and only Betty Porto of the famous Porto family, founders of the much-loved Porto's Bakery and Cafe, started by Betty's mother, Rosa, who came to America with her family from Fidel Castro's communist Cuba. Betty Porto will be joining us live later this hour. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, gold, and the whole works now. Joining us live, Jonathan Hoenig, Fox News contributor, portfolio manager at Capitalist Big Hedge Fund, and author of the book Price is Primary, How to Profit with Any Asset in Any Market at Any Time. Jonathan Hoenig, thank you very much for stepping up to the plate here as we root for the Dodgers. Good afternoon, sir.
Frank, it's great to be with you. So much to talk about live at 4. Happy to get right to it. For me, probably the most notable stat today is the one you alluded to just moments ago. The price of gold, new all-time high. We've been talking about this for months now, Frank, and the nature of trends is that trends tend to persist. So gold, silver, platinum, palladium. I think this is truly a bull market in metals and one that's likely to last for a couple of years. It goes against the administration's line that inflation is in check. We're seeing bond yields rise and the commodity prices like precious metals rise. But, two of the data points on my screen pretty notable if you're looking at the big picture.
On there live with Jonathan Hoenig. Gold glittering, and so is silver, by the way, up near $35 an ounce here. What is your outlook for both gold and silver at this point?
Bullish, Frank, and the way to play it is through the ETFs, the exchange-traded funds. SLV, that's the ETF that tracks silver. And today it hit a new 52-week high. What does that mean? Well, most people are hesitant to buy a stock or an asset at a 52-week high, Frank, because they think, oh, well, it's at its high. It can't go any higher. This is the nature of markets. They tend to trend over long periods of time. And what's been interesting is that these precious metals have been doing well, Frank, despite the fact the dollar has been rising. Usually we think of strong precious metals as being accompanied by a weak dollar. Well, the dollar has actually been strong. So I think gold, GLD, silver, SLV, both assets to have, in my opinion, in one's portfolio at this time.
Very interesting. And as you properly noted, we're seeing those bond yields tick higher, even though the Fed lowered its benchmark short-term interest rate by 0.5 percentage point recently. And mortgage rates have moved up. Gold has moved up. So some strange things happening that you would not expect given the Fed's move. What do you think the Fed's next move will be?
This was classic, Frank, as they say, buy the rumor, sell the fact. Everyone kept talking about lower interest rates as a result of a Fed move. Well, as you said, as soon as the Fed cut rates, interest rates have actually gone up. I'll tell you one way maybe perhaps our listeners can consider playing it is an interesting security. It's T as in Timothy, FLO, TFLO, Treasury Rate Floating Obligations. Basically, Frank, this is an ETF that holds treasuries but that have floating rates. So it's one way to avoid interest rate risk. You know, a lot of people, you can lose a lot of money in bonds or fixed income when interest rates go up. So TFLO is one I own. It's a treasury fund, so no credit risk there, but its rates float. So even if rates go up, and I do think they will, one of the unique experiences that we're in the middle of now, right now, Frank, is, as you said, a trend towards higher interest rates. So be very careful, I think, when buying bond funds or even looking at some of those dividend bank stocks. TFLO is one way to hedge that risk.
All right, the other stock that's getting a lot of attention lately, DJT, Trump Media and Technology Group, has soared lately, up another 10% today. This one is seen as tracking the fortunes of former President Trump's election chances here in the next couple of weeks. What do you think of DJT here?
Well, it is what they call, Frank, a meme stock. It doesn't mean it's a bad company. It just means that it's wildly overvalued. No matter what you think of President Trump or his election chances, there's just simply no fun media stock at $34 a share. Doesn't mean it can't go higher, but, there's an old line from the movie Wall Street, Frank. Gordon Gekko says to Bud Fox, I look at 100 deals a day. I pick one. So, you can't bet on everything. And if you really want to bet on an overvalued stock tied to a presidential candidate, DJT might be one to consider. But I think for truly longer term or certainly fundamental investors, one to skip.
You put it beautifully last time you were on with us that America is blue, red, and green. We're talking about the green, the money part of it here. And I'm sure you had a chance to assess the scenarios here that might play out in the next couple of weeks. And given the choices here, give us the scenarios here that the market might experience.
To be honest, Frank, I have to say, I think the market is bigger than any one election, certainly bigger than any one man. If you look at history, there's no one definitive answer as to under which presidential administration the economy is better. What worries me is that neither candidate seems to be serious about getting spending under control. And, we talked about all those incredible bond yields moving higher. I do think that there's a ticking time bomb, and that is debt, not only on the individual level, every day Americans' credit card bills are at an all-time high, but on a federal level as well, with that interest rates higher and the federal debt at all-time highs. So, neither candidate addressing the spending issue. So, that's my fear is we're going to continue to see the economy likely slow, interest rates likely rise, and the debt pile up.
All right, let's turn to the Mag 7, which have come to life lately, and NVIDIA shares at or near all-time highs again today. It looks like slipped slightly, down 12 cents at 143 and change. Let's revisit NVIDIA, AI, and the Mag 7 here.
I've been surprised, Frank. I have to say, in recent weeks, I have been favoring all those areas of the market, and we've talked about it, that are not AI. Names like value stocks, international stocks, small cap stocks, and many of them are doing well. But as you said, the Mag 7, in particular, NVIDIA has come back to new all-time highs, and I do think you have to respect that strength. We always talk about don't fight the tape, and when an asset, NVIDIA, just one example, all-time high, that trend tends to continue. So I certainly wouldn't fight the tape. Just what worries me as an investor, Frank, is that, if you will, the story is out. I was in a taxi cab the other day, or actually, I should say it's an Uber, and the wonderful Uber driver had to mention that he was looking to buy NVIDIA and in AI stocks. And the old saying is, when the taxi cab driver starts telling you what to invest in, it's likely the bull move is over. So I'm not fighting the tape, but I do think you're much better served focusing on value and small cap rather than those big cap tech names that have led for so long.
The taxi cab driver or the Uber driver in this case, right? And speaking of Uber, it's coming out of the pandemic, of course. Uber and Lyft certainly have also seen a rebound. What do you think of those names, by the way?
Not ones that I track very frequently, Frank, but the transports in general have had a big move. Has also had a big move in terms of automotives, if you will. So wouldn't fight Lyft and Uber. And more than anything, if one has a winning gain in these stocks, Frank, the real money is made not on the trading, jumping in and out, but on the waiting. So, as investors, that's really the challenge is if you have an open win trade in Uber or Lyft, I think sit with it, stick on it, and simply make sure that you have your financial house in order. That's the thing. It's so difficult oftentimes to hold a winning trade because we need the money. So, now especially considering that the market's at an all-time high, I think it's a great opportunity to get one's financial house in order. What does that mean? At the very least, get rid of that credit card debt, have 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses sitting on the sideline. If you get that done, Frank, you're better off than certainly 3/4 of everyday Americans, and you're able to withstand a drawdown in the market when and if it does come.
All right. As you mentioned, inflation's still a concern, especially as it relates to the price of oil, which has edged a bit higher this week, given what's happening in the Middle East and new concerns about additional military action breaking out at any moment here. What about oil here, hovering at around $72 a barrel?
Well, I have to say, I think as the old saying is, rising tide lifts all boats. And I do think oil, which has basically been in a holding pattern for a lot of 2024, is probably likely to move higher. One way to play it, Frank, are those MLPs, those master limited partnerships. These are stocks that are involved in the oil infrastructure business, most of them not oil dependent, but beneficiaries of higher commodity prices. So AMLP, that's the way I'd play oil. And I do think that both oil and natural gas are likely to go up. What's going to keep them down, Frank, is a slowing economy. That's the irony. We benefit from low energy prices that come with lower economic activity. But if you're for the long haul, I think stick with quality. XOM is ExxonMobil. That's the stock I could buy. And the MLPs for income to boot.
On the air live with Jonathan Honig, and hard to ignore the move we've seen in cryptos lately. I know you don't have the laser eyes on, but you certainly pay attention to what's happening. We see right now a Bitcoin just below 68,000 again here. What are your thoughts about what's happening in the crypto space?
Well, for me, Rick, it's 3 words: coulda, shoulda, woulda. This is one I certainly missed, and I think a lot of professionals have missed. Very surprised to see Bitcoin's continued strength, and 68 is a strong price. BITO, that's B as in Bitcoin, ITO. That's an ETF that actually tracks the price of Bitcoin. So if you're bullish on the space, and I have to say I'm not, Frank, BITO is the way to play it. But like everything, I think it's okay if you love it at 68, love it at 68. But at 65, 63, 59, 51. Be advised, that's the market telling you you're on the wrong track.
All right, now you should take a bow on this one here. Philip Morris, topping the S&P 500 movers on the upside today, up 10.5%. You had mentioned that one in recent weeks, and certainly recent months even. Philip Morris making a big move on the upside. What about that one here?
A classic value name that is quietly outperforming. Frank, the Uber drivers are talking about NVIDIA. They're talking about crypto. They're not talking about tobacco stocks or old line telecommunication stocks like AT&T. And, Philip Morris is a great example. It's also an example, like utilities, of stocks that people buy because of the dividend. They say, I'm going to buy the stock. It's got a great dividend. But then they're surprised when the stock itself goes up so dramatically. So it's all about strength. Strong assets tend to continue to be strong, and Philip Morris, as you said, 10% higher. And Frank, there's people buying it tomorrow morning because they think it's going 50% higher from current prices. So Philip Morris, the tobacco company, I think you can buy this one. And another one, in fact, is Turning Point Brands, TPB. That's another tobacco-related stock at a 52-week high, much less well-known than Philip Morris. But as we said, the rising tide lifts all boats. Turning Point is one to take a look at.
Smoke them if you got them. That's another pearl of wisdom that we have to impart here with those. Now that you mentioned those names. Now you mentioned energy, and that Vistra company, that Texas power company's been making a big move lately. And then these nuclear stocks have also been moving up lately, as we've been hearing tremendous energy demand connected to crypto as well as AI. Any other favorites in the energy space here today? Well,
many of them tend to move along with I should say the one I like is uranium. We don't think of uranium necessarily as being energy, but of course it's nuclear fuel, URA. That's an ETF, Frank, that tracks a whole bunch of uranium-related stocks, and it does tend to correlate pretty closely with crude oil and natural gas. So it's off the radar screen. That's always what I'm trying to look for, a little bit more than just the usual suspects. And if you want some energy exposure that's strong and not as popular, URA is one to consider.
On the air live with Jonathan Honig. Any other specific places, Jonathan Honig, where you are putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Sure. Well, you always want to do your own due diligence, Frank, and this comes with all caveats, as all the discussion of these securities are. But one of the names we've also talked about that I really like quite a bit now is platinum. The rising tide lifts all boats, and while gold is at an all-time high, platinum is still 50% below its 2008 high. It traded over $2,000 an ounce in 2008. Platinum was always known as, they used to call it the rich man's gold because it was more expensive than gold. Well, now it's about half the price of gold. So TPLT is the way to play that. I do have a position. You want to do your own due diligence, but don't be afraid, in my opinion, to venture off the radar screen to some of these lesser followed picks rather than just focusing on NVIDIA, Microsoft, and the same old names.
That's a really terrific point. Platinum used to be a lot more expensive than gold, and now it's about half the price of gold, and well off platinum's all-time high, as you noted also. So that's certainly something to watch. Of course, when things hit record highs, that's when people start talking about it and pile in, as we're seeing here with gold. And silver, of course, well off its all-time high, but now highs we've seen in about a dozen years. Did I ask, where do you think silver is going from here?
You make no price targets in a bull market, Frank. I mean, I remember, probably as you do, looking at gold at $400 and $500 an ounce 20 years ago, thinking, geez, could it ever hit 800 like it did in the early 1980s? We think of gold at the $2,500 an ounce now is expensive. Well, look at 4,000 or 5,000, that could seem cheap. So don't think about expensive or price target. Just think about what's strong and what's weak. Silver is strong. 52-week high today. That's the best indication you need that the trend is likely to continue.
Now, let me ask you the question I was asking during the financial crisis when gold hit $1,000 for the first time in many years back in those days. If it does go to 5,000, would you sell it?
Well, if it happens, Frank, it's not going to happen overnight. This is the nature of trends, is that they are slow. At that time. And, whether you sell or an individual security, it's all about your own, portfolio, your risk tolerance or situation in life. So, my sense is most people didn't think that Bitcoin would get to $60,000 a coin. And most people probably don't think that gold, for example, could get to $4,000 or $5,000 an ounce, or silver to $50 or $60 an ounce. So, again, I sound a little hyperbolic or a little bit obsessed with gold and metal, but it's just following the trends, following the
Yep, been following the news. That's what this is all about, news-driven conversation, and always great to have you with us here, Jonathan. Thank you very much for taking the call and fielding all the questions here this afternoon. That is the one and only Jonathan Honig, Fox News contributor, portfolio manager at Capitalist Pig Hedge Fund, author of the book Price is Primary, How to Profit with Any Asset in Any Market at Any Time. Jonathan, thank you very much for speaking with us here this afternoon.
Best to you. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you very much. And out to the freeways now on 790 KBC. Frank Mottek here. Speaking of gold, did you know that for more than 10,000 years, gold has been the greatest store of value and considered a safe haven asset to preserve your wealth? Now, with the U.S. debt at more than $35 trillion and climbing, not to mention the Biden administration getting us involved in costly wars, developing the digital dollar, central bank digital currency, and inflation spiraling out of control, it's more critical now than ever before to safeguard your assets, like your cash savings and retirement accounts, with physical gold. Opening a gold IRA is one of the best ways to secure your wealth and create a stable financial future. Stop worrying about your retirement in the market and cash savings in the bank. Feel confident, prepared, and in control with physical gold and silver. Give Joe Morgan a call right now at 1-800-753-8534. Mention Frank Mottek, and you could get $1,000 worth of silver with a qualifying purchase. Call now, 1-800-753-8534, or visit UnitedGoldGroup.com. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. Good afternoon. Mixed finish for the stock market today, with both the Dow and S&P 500 pulling back from recent record highs, but only slightly. The Dow was down just about 7 points at the bell at 42,924. The S&P 500 gave back 3 points today at 5,851. The Nasdaq, though, managed a closing gain of 33 points at 18,573. Helped, again, it looks like, by some of those Mag 7 names. Gold also continues to grab the spotlight, glittering again today, moving higher. Right now at around 2,761 an ounce. Silver also moving higher, just below $35 an ounce now. At last check, $34.97. And platinum, this will be fun to follow platinum now, moving slightly higher at $1,041.90 an ounce. Shares of Denny's moving lower by more than $1 to $5.47, a drop of 18%. Looks like Denny's plans to close a bunch of stores, or a bunch of restaurants, I should say, nationwide, closing about 150 of its lowest performing restaurants in an effort to turn around that brand's flagging sales. Taking a look at Bitcoin now, it's up about 300 at 67,725. Ethereum up 1 at 2,635. And Doge has made a move on the upside lately, right now at 14 cents. And now the latest news here in 790 KBC. It's always been absolutely amazing to me and a cause for great celebration in the business world. And we're joined live by one of the most amazing entrepreneurs here in Southern California with a great American dream success story, and that would be the one and only Betty Porto of the famous Porto family, founders of the much-loved Porto's Bakery and Cafe, started by Betty's mother, Rosa, who came to America with her family from Fidel Castro's communist Cuba. They lived a tremendous success story and have been given back tremendously to the Southern California community with amazing philanthropy as well. Betty Porto, thank you very much for coming to the line here this afternoon. Good afternoon, Betty.
Good afternoon.
Wonderful to have you with us. It's been a while since we chatted behind live microphones. It seems like yesterday we were together in a live broadcast when you opened your beautiful bakery cafe in Downey, and here we are. You've only expanded since then. Betty, wonderful to have you with us. Tell us what's happening at Porto's these days.
Well, we keep working every day. We get up every day to, keep promising people to, what my mother promised, which is to keep giving them the best product available and always fighting for the prices. So it's getting harder and harder, but we still are fighting for that, to give our customers the best deals for the best product, That's what we're all about.
That's wonderful. Tell us how Porto started, and I want to hear about the wonderful story about how your family came from Cuba and fled communist Fidel Castro's Cuba and built the much-loved Porto's bakery empire here.
Well, we waited 8 years to leave Cuba legally, 8 years, and then during that time, my mom was at home with 3 kids. My dad was taken to a forced labor camp, and she was fired. The government took over the company that they were working for. So she started making gigs at home in order to survive, which is hard because it was illegal. So she would have been caught. It was 25 years of jail time. So she was lucky that nobody ever ratted her out. But it was tough because the ingredients were not available. You couldn't go to the supermarket and buy the stuff. You had to wait for the people, if you commission the wedding cake, you would have to bring all the ingredients, the butter, the flour, the sugar, because everything was rationed, so she couldn't go to the market and get all the stuff that she needed. So when it came time to pay, then we paid her whatever chicken, it was rice, it was beans. Again, money meant nothing in the 60s and 70s in Cuba. You couldn't go to the market and get it. So they struggled like that for 8 years until they got here. And when they got here, she knew that if she had made it in Cuba, she was going to do super well here. Because like you said, supermarkets have all the ingredients I need. If I did it in Cuba, what's going to stop me here? Everything is at my fingertips. I just started making cakes for friends and family that knew of her work in Cuba. And 5 years later, we opened our first little mom and pop in Cerro Lake and Sunset. And then around the 1980s, we came to Glendale. And around 1982, we had our first storefront that we owned, which is the Glendale Bakery, which we bought, that was the first time we became property owners. And the rest is history. Now we have, 6 locations and soon to open in Disneyland, which will be number 7, downtown Disney. So very excited about the growth that we have experienced in the mom and pop, mother and father. Now the 3 of us, but our children are involved in the bakery. We're trying to carry the
That's
legacy.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. We honor the memory of your wonderful mom, Rosa, and your dad, Raul, right? We want to honor their accomplishments and certainly yours as well. And so that's exciting. You're going to be opening it in downtown Disney. Porto's there.
Yes.
When's that going to be happening?
Well, we're thinking 2026 is going to be a little bit different. It'll be a smaller bakery, but also it's going to be a sit-down dinner, normal sit-down, with a full bar, so people coming out of this level will be able to enjoy not only pastries and sandwiches, but for whole meal. So working on the menu, we're excited. Something different. We never done that before. I'm sure
that's wonderful.
We hope it'll be wonderful.
That is, sounds terrific, and I should also note that your family has always been very generous and with such a big heart with philanthropy as well. I know you support the Union Rescue Mission, and that will be appearing on the Amazing Stories from Skid Row program here on 790 KBC as well. Tell us about your support for Union Rescue Mission here.
Well, it started 14 years ago. It happened naturally. A customer, they used to come to the bakery that used to work there. Asked us, what do you do with all the product you have and left at the end of the day? And I told them, well, we just package them and sell them the next day for half price. But we didn't want to continue doing that because we had lines of people in the morning fighting for leftovers. So we said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could find somebody that could pick them up? And that's exactly what happened 14 years ago. They started picking up. So now they pick up 7 days a week, every day from Burbank and Glendale. And then all the other bakers are tied to different shelters. So in the bakery, nothing goes to waste. Everything that's left in the showcases is donated, and then we start all over again around 2 or 3 in the morning. So it's always fresh. And it's a win-win. We found some way to take our products, and at the same time, we're getting to make a difference with somebody that really does an incredible job with every resource they get. They take care of a lot of people in the Union Mission, not only feeding them, but giving them medical, giving them legal advice, dental care. It's an amazing institution in Southern California.
And one of the great joys among the folks there at Union Rescue Mission is to receive your wonderful pastries at the Union Rescue Mission, which thanks to you they have there, which is absolutely wonderful. I've seen it firsthand, Betty. It's absolutely wonderful to reconnect with you. Tell us about your all of your locations so that people can get over there and enjoy your beautiful bakery and cafe.
Thank you. So we have Glendale, Burbank, Downey, West Covina, Buena Park. The latest one was Northridge, and soon in Disney. And then also we have something that started just before COVID, and it took off during COVID, which is Bake at Home. So we are shipping now all over the United States. So anybody that wants to send somebody during Christmas or the holidays to any family anywhere in the United States except Hawaii, they can do so. Bake at home. The product gets in there 2 days, and you bake it yourself, and it's like having portals in your home all over again. It's a great thing that we've done because it's a good way of reaching we have now shipped all over the United States without having to open a brick and mortar location. We are allowed to ship, we're able to ship all over the United States, which is great. You can get the pastelitos, the potatoes, the ones you like, the meat pies, and guava cheese. We even ship cakes, cheesecakes. Every day we ship more and more and more. It's a great thing for us to be able to reach people now across the United States, not only in Southern California.
The Porto success story continues, Betty. Thank you so very much, and I hope to see you over there. I'll put my Guayabera back on, and maybe we can do another live broadcast someday when you open at Disney. So thank you very, very much for sharing your wonderful story as always, and all the best to you and your family. Betty Porto, Porto's here in Southern California. Live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KABC. Taxes very much in focus, just 2 weeks away from the big presidential election. The Internal Revenue Service, meanwhile, just set its levels for income tax brackets and a commonly used deduction that Americans will have for their 2025 taxes. Let's bring in America's leading taxpayer advocate, Grover Norquist, now president of Americans for Tax Reform. Grover Norquist, thanks for coming to the line here today.
Absolutely. Good to be with you.
We see the latest Gallup poll, by the way, asking what is important to voters this time around. The economy, number one, inflation and immigration, topping the list of voter concerns. And also, they were asked about the question of whether taxes are too high. The Gallup poll asked that question and learned that 56% of all of us out there think taxes are too high, including 60% of independent voters. Give us your thoughts here as we approach the presidential election in just a couple of weeks and the tax policy differences that people will have to decide on.
Yeah, Gallup asks this question every year and certainly talks about it every election cycle. And so they had a strong majority said taxes are too high. 4% said their taxes were too low, 4%. That's not many. And as you point out, the economy and taxes are top of the list of people's concerns. Wages have not grown faster than inflation for the last 3.5 years for most Americans. Most Americans are, in fact, poorer in terms of their salary than they were before. And then you wonder why people are grumpy, or you shouldn't wonder because it's kind of obvious. But the two candidates disagree on a lot of things, but the issue they disagree most, meaning they want to go in different directions. You know, a lot of times in politics, one politician says, I'd like to do X, and the other politician says, I'd like to do 2X. And you have an argument between X and 2X. They both want to go in the same direction, but I want more and faster, or I want less and slower. Okay, let's, if you're heading in the same direction, you can have a little debate about how quickly you go there. But we have a discussion now with two different parties where the Republican Party and Trump, not just Trump, but the Republican congressmen and senators, want to keep the Trump tax cuts permanent. And on the other hand, the Democrats, not just the presidential candidate, but Democrats running for at all levels, say they want to abolish, get rid of, and repeal the Trump Republican tax cuts. The tax cuts will reduce the marginal tax rates for every single American taxpayer. So when Kamala Harris says, I'm going to repeal those, she says, if you pay federal income tax, your rates will be higher. The tax rate you pay will be higher. We'll go back to the Obama levels. That will make everybody poorer who pays taxes. They then have a situation where she wants to raise the tax on businesses, the corporate income tax, up 33% to take it higher, significantly higher than China, higher than Germany, higher than Britain, higher than most other countries in the world, which will make American businesses, your job, less competitive. She wants to take the capital gains tax, which is the tax on if somebody invests money in the company you work for so that they can get you more equipment and better computers and make everybody more productive so they can make stuff faster. Capital gains tax says, well, we're going to tax you on taking money that you've already paid taxes on, But so when you invest it, we're going to punish you if you make money on it. We're going to tax you for that. And when you raise that tax, you say to investors, would you like to invest in China with a lower capital gains tax than we have? And according to Kamala Harris, she wants to take our tax up even higher, bigger, more devastating than China's and more than Europe. So investment will flow out of the United States rather than into it. So she also wants to tax energy, and so the price of gasoline will go up, the price of home heating and air conditioning, all of those issues. And Trump's position is don't tax it, deregulate it, let people create more energy in the United States, because that's a lot of jobs in America. So in each one of these, she wants to raise taxes. She wants the IRS to have more money to do more audits on individuals, not the big companies or the rich people. Those guys actually get audited and know that they have to do what they're supposed to do or they're in trouble. But the IRS bragged that with all the money that they got from Obama and from Kamala Harris and from Biden and Kamala Harris, they were going to focus on self-employed people. That's who they're focusing on. Not rich people, self-employed people, small businessmen and women. That's their target. So politicians say all they want, we're going to go after the big companies or rich people. That is not what the IRS said they planned to do. They wrote down who they were going after.
Now, let me ask you, does this remind you, for those of us, or it certainly reminds me of 1984 when President Reagan pledged no new tax hikes. Mondale, the vice president who ran in 84, Jimmy Carter's vice president who ran for president, promised to raise taxes in that Reagan-Mondale debate, and the result was Reagan winning by a landslide, 49 out of 50 states. Does this remind you of that situation?
It does, with one caveat, and that is the establishment press back then believed that Mondale had said something clever when he said, Reagan's going to raise taxes. He says he won't. I'll raise taxes. I tell you I will. One, people believed Reagan when he said he wouldn't raise taxes because he'd been a tax cutter. And two, they really, really, really don't like higher taxes. And back then, CBS and NBC and ABC and public, government broadcasting, PBS, they all believed that when a politician said he would raise your taxes, that was not committing political suicide, that was because they thought it was popular. And so they told the whole world, it was on national TV, and they repeated it. When Kamala Harris says, I'm going to raise taxes $5 trillion, at Americans for Tax Reform, on our website, HER.org or Kamalanomics, like Bidenomics, but Kamalanomics.org, we have her on video dozens and dozens of times saying that. You probably haven't seen it on TV because the establishment press does not choose to highlight that which she has said because they're kind of rooting for her.
Isn't that something? Well, Grover, thanks for highlighting it here. Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC.
You met Lala Kent on Vanderpump Rules. Now Lala and her friends share everything on Give Them Lala.
Baby S is giving me money-making moves in the room.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have one kid who's like, I want to just live in a box and do like artistic dancing and paint. Ocean's going to be like, it doesn't matter if I'm broke, Mom. I'm passionate about it. And Baby S is going to be the one that says passion doesn't pay bills, Ocean.
Watch what Lala is talking about on YouTube or search for Give Them Lala wherever you listen.